What if I told you the key to getting shredded, to getting lean, the key to fat loss was actually eating more? Now, you'd probably think that's bonkers. That don't make no sense. However, it's true. Now, look, you can see at the top, eat more equals fat loss. I'm not even sure if that's proper grammar. However, we're going to run with it because I like the look of it. So, if you are somebody that constantly gets hungry, if you're somebody that is binge eating, missing the diet, messing up on the diet every day, or if you're somebody which fat loss just feels like this uphill, constant battle, by the end of this video, you're going to have a clear understanding of how to get rid of the hunger, how to get rid of the binge eating, and how to make fat loss feel like a more pleasant journey. It shouldn't feel horrible. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a challenge now and then, but it shouldn't feel horrible. So, without further ado, I'm going to show you how you can eat more and actually achieve more fat loss. This is the best key there is to getting lean, and most importantly, staying lean, because truthfully, what is the point in getting shredded and in great shape and looking good is for a month? We want to be in great shape for the rest of our life. And this is going to help. Let's get lean. Oh, right. First of all, before I start blabbing, let's go through some of the results. I want to show you that this worked for me before, telling you to do stuff. But truthfully, for our whole life, I've really struggled with fat loss. Whenever it came to dropping a couple pounds, or even just being able to see my abs, being able to see my physique, I really struggled with it. And I would always do well for a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then I'd fall right back off the horse. And it feels like this constant battle, as I said. Now, over to the left there is me, and I'm at the time about 20 years old, I think, about 3 years ago. And I was actually a semi-professional footballer. I'm training 3 to 4 times a week in that picture. However, my diet, and in this picture as well, I can't stress enough that I was, in this place where I really wanted to cut fat. I really wanted to get lean, and I would eat less and less and less and less, thinking that that's how you do it. And then I would end up exploding, and then I'd have a week where I'd eat thousands of calories. You don't even want to know. And then the next picture is me a couple months ago now, when I'm in the cycle. I've been in the cycle for about a year now, where I can stay between 10 and 15% body fat year round. Whether I'm bulking, cutting, whatever I'm doing, I stay between that range. And the final picture is 2 weeks into a cut yesterday. I've got 2 weeks to go. And using this one concept that we're going to get through later in this video has absolutely changed the way that I do this, has enabled me to stay sub 50% body fat year round. And it feel easy. It doesn't feel like a challenge. It doesn't feel like this uphill battle constantly, simply by this one trick. Now, yes, there's a bunch of other things that need to be right, your training and all this stuff, whatnot, but this one thing will help massively, and has certainly helped me get in and stay in the physique that I want. Now, you're probably thinking, what's this one thing? You're probably thinking, look, mate, you've been chatting for about 10 minutes and you ain't even mentioned it once. But before we talk about it, I want you to get a notepad. I want you to get a journal. I want you to get a Sharpie. Nah, actually, get a nice writing pen and write some of this down, because this is gold dust that I'm flinging about, flinging nuggets of wisdom. Seriously, it took me years to flipping understand this. Anyways, before we get into that, let's understand. We need to understand. As we go through this list, it's actually going to point out, and you're going to realize what this key concept might be, what this way, this principle might actually be. You're probably not understand it by this list. Now, a couple things that we have to understand when it comes to fat loss is 100 calories. Are they empty or are they dense? Not all calories are made the same. What do I mean by that? Now, if I gave you a chocolate bar, you'd finish it. It's more than 100 calories, but you'd finish it and you'd be like, what's next? I want another one. You could eat another one. You could probably eat another 5, 6, maybe even 10. I don't know. If it's been a bad day, maybe you can eat 10 chocolate bars. However, if I gave you a plate of broccoli, that amounted to about 100 calories, yeah, good luck. You'll finish it, but You won't want to eat after that. You'll be pretty full, and that's only 100 calories. Now the reason why, because one is has nutrition in, the other doesn't, simply. But then second of all, we're going to go into the deeper side of that, of like, why does that stuff fill us up so much more than the chocolate bar, and how this is speaking to the key that we're going to be pointing on this video. The second principle that we need to understand is hunger signaling. Now, I promise I'm not going to get too sciencey, but we got to get a little bit sciencey to understand this stuff, right? So ghrelin is your hunger hormone. So if you ever been sitting there and you're typing or you're reading or whatever, and you're hungry, that's because ghrelin is being released, or you're bored. It's one of the two. Sometimes it's both. You're actually hungry and you're bored. Now, when this hormone or this chemical gets released inside of us, we're hungry. So then we go and eat. Now, if our ghrelin levels are way higher than they need to be, the byproduct of that is that we eat way more than we're meant to. The flip side to ghrelin is leptin. Now, leptin is the chemical that gets released when you're satiated. Now, satiated simply means when you're full, when you've had enough to eat. Leptin will be released and you stop eating. Most of us. Now, these two chemicals are not random. They can actually be dictated to. We can set up our diet, we can set up our nutrition, and we can set up our training and our timing to balance these two hormones so that they work in our favor. And of course, ultimately point us in the direction of getting absolutely shredded or lean or just in shape. The last one that we need to understand is our metabolic rate. Now, you'll probably got that friend. They wake up with a six pack every day. They wake up with a six pack. I've got many of them, and they used to really annoy me when I was young because I didn't. I used to wake up with a belly. Now, we have to understand our metabolic rate. Now, metabolic rate is simply how many calories your body burns on a daily basis. This thing flipping really helps with that, but I'm sponsored. But how many calories that your body burns on a daily basis is your metabolic rate. Now, mine, for example, is between 1,700 to 1,900. I mean, if I sort of train, I mean, I don't train too hard, but I just have like a normal day, which means if I eat 2,300, 400, 500, I put on weight. Now, my hunger signaling is you may be, and this may be the case for yourself. Hold on, let me move back. Your hunger signaling may be here, which means you're hungry all the time. However, your metabolic rate may be here. Now, if this is out of balance for too long and we live off our feelings that they bring, then we get out of shape because hunger signaling goes off. We want to eat about 2,500 calories. Our metabolic rate only burns just under 2,000 of them. Over a long enough time, you get out of shape and you stay out of shape. Now, what we need to do is instead of thinking about increasing our metabolism, which can be done, but over a long enough period of time, what we have to do is we have to, first of all, reduce our hunger signaling and increase our our satiety. So ghrelin is our hunger signaling. I'm hungry. Leptin is, bruv, you've eaten enough, chill out. Now, what we need to do is we need to get a good balance of those so that we can eat just underneath our metabolic rate. And then the byproduct of that is you get absolutely shredded. I'm hoping this is all making sense. And I can't wait to move off from the sciencey stuff. I do like it a bit, but I want to get into the practical stuff. But that's what we got to understand. Now, you're probably thinking, all right, cool, bruv. Tell us about this thing then. What is this actual thing? Hold on. Give it a second. Let's get onto it. Right. How to stay. I should have put how to get and then /stay. Lean. Lean. Probably seen in here. It says volume eating. This is the key. All right, that's done. Video done. And I'm joking. Volume eating is basically, to put it short, is when you turn a plate that is about that size and you make it that size. You add more food to the plate without increasing the calories too high. Now, what you've got, let's take a normal plate of chicken and rice, which is a good meal. However, that may not satisfy you. You may be finishing that meal and thinking, oh, I'm still a bit hungry. What's next? Now, that is normal for a lot of us. And it's this feeling over a long enough time frame that hits us, gets us, and then we go into the cupboard and we start eating all sorts of nonsense. Super high calorie, low satiety food, which then makes us eat more calories, then we stay out of shape or we put on weight. volume eating, as I said, is increasing the plate size by this, and both physiologically consuming more food and psychologically balancing those hunger signaling to the point where it's like, oh, right, I'm satisfied. The leptin increases because you're satisfied with a higher amount of food. However, the calories have stayed relatively low. Now, there's two examples above me, here and here. The example to the right is actually a better example, but so the one to the left got lentils, chicken, and a couple tomatoes. Now, that is nowhere near enough of what I'm talking about when I say volume eating. This is more, all right? So this is a little bit of chicken, 2 chicken thighs, a little bit of rice. This bowl is full of mushrooms, carrots, sweet corn, broccoli, all of that stuff. And look, before you say, I don't like vegetables, they don't really have taste. If we're super honest, especially put some soy sauce on that, bit of salt, pepper, and some all-purpose, sprinkle that all over that. It ain't got much taste. You can't really taste vegetables that much. At least one high-volume meal per day is going to increase your leptin, which means your satiety, which means you're full, which means you eat less calories, and it's going to decrease your ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. All right, that's going off all the time. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Now, veg, how we increase the size of the plate is by a couple of things. Lean proteins. Protein is priority. Protein actually comes from the Greek word prior, which means primary, which means number one, uno, the first thing you need to focus on. High fiber carbs, which is more like your potatoes and these sort of things. If you're going to go for rice, then you're going to go more for brown rice than you are for white rice, because it's more nutrients. It basically takes a longer time to digest and whatnot. It leaves you fuller for longer, blah, 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 science. But the last and the most important one is veggies. Tomatoes, mushrooms, broccoli, carrots, sweet corn, cauliflower rice, egg whites, funny enough. These sort of volume foods, they take the plate from that big, and they only add about 50 calories. And they keep you full for hours. I cannot stress how helpful this is for long-term sustainable fat loss and staying in fantastic shape year-round. If you are somebody that is hungry 24/7, like me, and you're eating your meal, you know what I mean, you're thinking, I eat less, I'm gonna get in shape finally, maybe for summer, that burns out, that candle burns out. And at some point, your body goes into, bruv, you need to eat food. And that is when you start picking and binge eating and all that stuff. How we satisfy this part of us that gets incredibly hungry is simply by volume eating. When it's time to eat, you eat. However, instead of increasing the plate with loads of calories, you increase it with loads of foods that are high in fiber. Fiber basically allows your body to digest and absorb the nutrients that you eat. A plate of chicken by itself, that's great, really good for you. However, you're going to eat that and you're probably going to think, what's next? And the body's not going to be able to absorb it as well. If you add some veggies onto that, or mixed veggies, lentils and tomatoes, all that stuff, your body can absorb the nutrients quicker, more efficiently. And then that leads to your leptin being released earlier. Remember what leptin is? I'm satisfied hormone. When that gets released, you'll stop eating. You stop eating with lower calories. The byproduct of that is that you eat less. You don't eat less, you eat more. However, you eat less calories. Now, on top of this, as a side note, like water-rich foods such as watermelon, oranges, lemons. I don't know who on earth eats a lemon. That's weird. But if that's your thing, go for it. But these sort of foods, they can help as well when it comes to volume eating. Eat more, less calories. Now, I cannot stress enough how I cannot stress enough how life-changing this has been for me. I promise you, I'm somebody that has high hunger signaling and my metabolic rate is low, which meant my whole childhood I was out of shape. A lot of my teens, I was out of shape. I've been out of shape. I would always see my friends with the six packs and all of this stuff. And I would always think, why can't I be like them? Why can't I be like them? And it led me to really not liking my body and not being comfortable in my body, being insecure and a bunch of other things. And you may be feeling the same way. However, if you can master this, you can master your physique. Of course, side note, you have to train. Get the training right as well. I'll make a couple of vids on that. But you have to master this. Your nutrition is even more important in your training, I'll be honest with you. You can have a six-pack without training. You just bang your nutrition right. We've all got a six-pack. It's just whether our fat percentage is low enough to see it or not. You all have a six pack. You watching this have a six pack, whether you do or you don't. If your fat percentage gets low, you'll see it. And this is going to help you. This changed my life, and I hope it can change yours. As I said, this is how I walk around most of the year, and the highest fat percentage I am in a year is here. That's the highest fat percentage I get. And like looking at this now, I'm almost like I'm a little bit in shock still, because this was not my reality. This was my reality, and actually far worse than this picture here. And I wish I took more pictures. That was my reality. I was unable to get into shape and stay in shape. And it played a toll. It plays its toll. I know exactly how it feels, but volume eating is going to help massively, especially if you're somebody that wants to eat all the time and has a slow metabolism. All right. So without further ado, that's that. I think that's it. Yeah, done. I will say though, this is scratching the surface, right? If this is something, if you would like to go deeper than the surface and really understand how to dictate your physique and get into the best shape of your life, you're going to need more than a couple presentation videos. I'll be super honest with you. You're going to need coaching. You're going to need directing. You're going to need guidance. And this is also something that took me from knowing things to being able to apply them in my life, was being coached. Now, I'm going to leave a link down below so you can book a call with this team. Check it out. Have a look. Might want coaching. If you want to stick with the free stuff, stick with the free stuff. But just be intentional. Whatever your focus is, whatever your goal is, be intentional about achieving it. And whatever your stage you're at with it, that's what stage you're at with it. But be intentional. Lots of love. Check the link down below. If not, then don't. I'm not your dad. See you in a bit.